Adam, I think I gave you the AFC. Tell us what it's looking like.
Okay, the way it is right now, New England has that #1 seed. They've already clinched the AFC East with that win over Denver. They host Miami and Buffalo each of the next 2 weeks. Those are games I think they're going to win easily. They're going to go to 13-3. I think they're going to get the #1 seed. No questions asked. They're just playing too well football right now for them not to get that seed. Right now, it's listed as Baltimore is the #2 seed over tiebreakers. And right now they're tied with Pittsburgh for that division. So, because of course they beat Pittsburgh twice. So if Pittsburgh wins that division, it'll look a lot different. Houston could slide in and get the #2 spot. They're listed at 3 right now. Houston has Indianapolis in Indianapolis, and they host Tennessee the final week of the season. With TJ Yates at quarterback, I see them probably splitting those 2 games to go to 11-5. I think they'll probably wind up with that 3rd seed, and they'll probably be hosting a game on Wild Card Weekend. The #4 spot is Denver. Of course, they're the AFC West leaders. They are at Buffalo, and they host Kansas City for the next 2 weeks. Of course, they'll probably be favored in both those games, but I think Kansas City could wind up spoiling them in Week 17. They could go 9-7, which could leave the door open for a San Diego or Oakland to possibly catch them. So I think the AFC West has not been won yet, despite Denver playing as well as they have been over the past 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, Pittsburgh which I mentioned earlier, has clinched a playoff berth already at 10-4. So right now, they're trying to flip-flop between themselves and Baltimore to get that home playoff game. Pittsburgh hosts St. Louis and then goes to Cleveland for their final 2 weeks. But they need Baltimore to lose. Probably Cincinnati is the one game you could see them losing. But Pittsburgh would have to win out for that to happen. But I just don't see that happening. The Jets have that 6th and final spot right now at 8-6. They have the tiebreaker over Cincinnati due to win percentage against common opponents. The Jets are hosting the Giants this week, and they go to Miami. I think anything could happen there. But right now, the Jets are in the driver's seat for that final spot. You look in the hunt, Cincinnati is tied for that last spot. They have a pretty tough schedule ahead. They're going to be hosting Arizona, a team that's been playing really well as of late. They're now up the record to 7-7.
Yeah.
And they host Baltimore Week 17. Cincinnati's probably going to have to win out to get in the postseason, and they're going to have to hope the Jets lose the Giants this weekend for them to have a realistic chance to get in the postseason. Then you've got Tennessee, Oakland, and San Diego are all 7-7, the teams in the hunt. Tennessee is hosting Jacksonville, then going to Houston. Tennessee, you could possibly see them winning out because Houston, having already clinched the AFC South, could be resting their starters for their playoff games. So it could be a way for Tennessee to slide into its 9-7 record, kind of like what the Jets did 2 years ago when the Colts rested their starters and it winded up backing into the playoffs. Oakland's also as at 7-7. They're at Kansas City this week. They've been playing awful the last few weeks, just getting crushed by Miami and then also losing to Detroit this past week in the final seconds. And then they host San Diego Week 17, which will be a very pivotal game for this AFC West race, should Denver fall at all in the next 2 weeks. And then, of course, San Diego, as I mentioned, they're at Detroit this week, and then they're at Oakland. They have arguably the toughest schedule not named Cincinnati in this playoff hunt. 2 road games. However, we all know how good North Turner and Phillip Rivers are in December, so I wouldn't rule those guys out either. It says Kansas City is mathematically in the hunt. I just don't see them going in at 8-8. So those are your 10 teams. I think that AFC West race is something to really keep your eye on because I don't think Denver's won it yet. They've been playing the best football out of those 3 teams. But look out for San Diego because they're making another charge again as they're used to doing in December.
No pun intended.
So really watch out for that race.
Yeah, I guess it really, I mean, because the Steelers or the Ravens are both going to be sitting there with guaranteed playoff berths, right? Then there's just that one, I mean, it's really the Jets to lose, wouldn't you say so? And really,
yes.
the only way the Titans can sneak in is the Jets, obviously, because they're not part of a division race. So that's the only way the Titans can come in, but the Titans might have the easiest schedule of anybody. So if you were going to, I mean, and the Jets don't have easy games. They could lose out, right? Giants and Dolphins, they could definitely lose out here. So if you were to predict what would happen based on the schedules we have upcoming, what do you think? How do you think it's going to shake out? Do you think the Jets are going to pull off this last wild card spot? And do you think the Broncos are going to go into a slide now, opening up the door in that division?
I mean, the way the Broncos have played, at this point, I'd say they're going to win the division. They'll probably split these next 2 games. I think they're going to beat Buffalo, no problem. That Kansas City game, though, I think is going to be a gut test for Denver because Kansas City, we can say what we want about them. We thought they're a pretty mediocre football team. But look what they did to Green Bay. They've played Pittsburgh really tough at times. They're still a decent football team that could scare people and play the role of spoiler.
And with Kyle Orton.
They're mathematically in this, too. So Kansas City could give Denver some trouble. And I think San Diego could end up sliding and taking the AFC West. For now, I'm going to put Denver as the AFC West champ, and they're going to host either Baltimore or Pittsburgh in the first round. The Jets, the problem with the Jets are, they're wildly inconsistent. Their offense is just, their running game has been average this season. Protecting Mark Sanchez hasn't been too great this season either. Their right side of the offensive line has been awful the whole season, which is something that they've used to have all the last 2 years, is to be able to protect Mark Sanchez through that right side and as well to create a nice running lane with it. They haven't been able to do that lately. So I think that the Giants will beat the Jets this week. They'll beat Miami to go to 9-7, but I can see a Cincinnati possibly, or maybe even San Diego slide in and take that spot. I don't see the Jets making the playoffs this year.
Very, very interesting. Okay, Tad, tell us about the NFC.
Okay, the NFC. We got a couple things that are obvious. San Francisco wins the West. New Orleans right now, they still have a chance to not win the South with Atlanta. Atlanta needs to win the next 2. New Orleans needs to lose one of the next 2, or actually needs to lose both. So that's probably not going to happen. Green Bay has clinched the North. Playoff teams that are still alive. Let's start from the bottom. Let's look at the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears can't lose. They have to win both games. Arizona can't lose. Have to win both games. Seattle can't lose. Has to win both games. For the wild card, Detroit and Atlanta. If either of those teams win one game, they're in. So that might cover the wild cards up pretty quickly. So that would make the Green Bay the winner in the North. Detroit at 9-5, 1 win away, could win either game, or have Chicago, Seattle, Arizona, or the Giants lose a game, and they'd be in. Atlanta, same situation. That makes the East the one to watch. Just like Ross said, the West and the AFC is the one to watch. We're going to be looking at the East. Cowboys at 8-6. They win this weekend against Philadelphia, and they're in. So New York Giants, they got the Jets this weekend, and then they play the Cowboys. They would need the Eagles to beat the Cowboys, and then they would need to beat they need the Eagles to beat the Cowboys, and then they would need to beat the Cowboys and the Eagles to lose to Washington. Because the Eagles at 6-8, if they win the next 2 games, and the Giants lose to the Jets, and the Giants beat the Cowboys, all 3 teams would be 8-8, and the Eagles would be 5-1 in the division and make the playoffs. Giants can get in as a division winner or a wild card. They'd have to beat the Jets this weekend. That would eliminate the Eagles. I hope that all made sense.